Hello, everyone. It is time yet again for another episode of I Didn't Sign Up for This. Glad you could be here. Glad you could hear it. Glad we could be here. Carrie, what are we thinking about?
Hey, Tim. So our little break is over. We're back and ready to go. And I'm really excited because I've been thinking a lot about childhood dreams. What did you want to be when you were little? 7-year-old Tim running around the front yard. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Tarzan.
Nice. I wanted to be a famous actress and singer. And I used to pretend to be just that the majority of my childhood. And it's funny because as time has gone on, and obviously I've aged a lot, there's still some characteristics that I've carried over from that time in my life. So I started thinking a lot about that and what that looks like for us. And I have this theory that everyone we come in contact with, everyone we meet, everyone we're friends with, everyone we love, they are the same people from a personality perspective that we would encounter on a kindergarten school playground. Okay? So that bossy Beth in kindergarten is bossy Beth in her 30s and 40s. That really sensitive, caring girl that wants to make everybody happy is still that really sensitive, caring girl that wants to make everybody happy. That boy that pulls the girl's hair, yeah, he's still doing stuff like that at, 30 or 40. Maybe not pulling hair, but pretty much the same idea and the same personality. So if you think about that and you look at so let's span out a little bit. And so we all have these personalities that we're born with, and obviously they evolve and we go through things in our lives that really contribute to the maturity level that we have in some cases. I don't like to act my age most of the time because I think it's boring. I'd rather have fun. But if you think about our personalities and you think about our lives and what we wanted to be and how that's evolved and where we are now, I really want to hone in on what it means to find your purpose in life. Okay? So there's a reason behind that. When we were 6, 7 years old, we were honest with ourselves. You wanted to be Tarzan. I wanted to be actress and singer on the big stage, and I think that as time goes on and we start to lose the imagination and the approach that we take to life as it being an adventure, and we fall into roles that maybe are expected of us or maybe roles that we expect of ourselves, we lose a part of that spirit and that motivation and that excitement and that drive that makes us original, that makes us have this, thirst for being a superhero or for being, king of the jungle or for getting on stage and singing for thousands of people. And that's a concern for me because the more that we step away from the imagination and what we truly feel, and we let logic take over and step in and tell us what we should be. And maybe we had people in our lives who told us what we should be based on their perception of the world. And so then we're trying to fit into a box that's been created for us, whether we created it ourselves or experiences or other people created it for us. There's a disconnect there, and it can dampen your spirit. So a lot of people will go through the motions for a lot of their life until they hit that moment, and it might be in their 40s, it might be in their 50s, it might be in their 60s, whenever it is, but they hit that moment where they go, holy crap, I don't want to live in this box anymore. I want the opportunity to explore what my meaning and my purpose is, aside from any expectations, whether they're self-imposed or people have put them on me. And I think that there is a base out there that goes through that. And so tonight's podcast really needs to be about how we discover what our purpose in life is and really what that looks like. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Sure. So how do people define their life's purpose? I think most people just fall into whatever they do, and their life's purpose goes into, well, it's relegated to the heap of hobbies or interests or things that we never really had the guts to do. And so how do we make that determination?
Well, there's a process, right? Like I think that a lot of people that come to me and they're looking for a life coach, they're actually looking for a sounding board to validate the fact that they need to rediscover what their life's purpose is. Because our life's purpose is not to wake up every morning, go through the motions, procreate, and go to bed at night. You know what I mean?
Whoa.
Like,
you had me at procreate. What are we talking about?
Truth be told, I'm not big on procreation, but I really like the practice.
Oh, there you go.
I'm kidding. So I'm coming from a place of experience on this because I described it to a friend of mine the other day because we were talking about the different chakras that we have and how they relate to different aspects of your life. And he's very grounded in life and logic, and I am the opposite. And he was like, well, it's no fun to be grounded in logic. And I said, yeah, but imagine a balloon floating through the air with nothing to tie it to. And so I get that I tend to be idealistic, and I tend to be up in the clouds a little bit more, because for me, life is about imagination and adventure and creating a world where you can explore new things and things are exciting. And I do. Anybody that knows me knows that there are times where I get so excited about the smallest things, but to me, it's an opportunity to experience something. And there's a difference in how we feel when we're discovering our purpose in life versus how we feel when we're avoiding it. And I've been on both sides of that. So just because I look at life now, today, in this moment, as an opportunity to experience and have an adventure and explore new things, and I'm not saying that I live in this idealistic personality all the time. Like, I have struggles and I have obstacles, and I get very comfortable with my obstacles, just short of naming them, I would say, on a few of them. But I've been in that situation where I'm going through the motions to the point that I'm not even fulfilled. So let's say that maybe if I had to put a percentage on it, I've been in a place in my life where I was maybe 30% fulfilled. So there was a whole 70% that was, locked away in a whole separate part of my world that I never even tapped into, because I was, getting up, going into work, doing this, doing that, checking off the list, going home, making dinner, watching, I don't know, American Idol or whatever I watched at the time, and going to bed and then getting up and doing it all over again, and and then it's a cycle. And then you quit going out with your friends and you quit having all these different experiences because you're just going through the motions and you become numb. And then you have this aha moment, or I had this aha moment where I said, this isn't okay because I'm wasting. Well, I looked at it this way. I looked in the mirror and I said, Carrie, you're wasting the pretty years. You got to get out there. You got to live a little bit more, because we're all going to be old and wrinkly someday. And so I was wasting my pretty years. Well, thanks to Botox, that'll be prolonged as much as possible. But
I don't know what plan you're on, but no, I feel you. I know.
So what does it feel like? What does it feel like to not, maybe we explore what it feels like to not know what your purpose is in life. What is that like?
What does it feel like to know or to not know?
To not know.
How could I tell you? I don't know.
Well, let me tell you, it sucks. I will tell you that when you are going through the motions, not only does it weigh on you emotionally, but it weighs on you physically. So
right.
You're tired all the time. You're not excited about anything. Everything happens to you. You don't happen to it. And that's a bad place to be. So if we flip that, what does it feel like when you are living your purpose? I'll let you answer that, Tim.
Now that I can speak to.
Okay, no, do tell.
No, I think living your purpose, when you are lucky enough or blessed enough or, just smart enough or hardworking enough or whatever to figure out what works for you, life is good. Life is pretty exciting. Now, that doesn't mysteriously or magically give you more drive or more energy. You still have to get 6 or 8 hours of sleep a night. You still have to eat right. You still have to, exercise and do all the things that we do to stay healthy and strong. The difference is you have a little bit of motivation to want to do those things because you're engaged in a behavior that you absolutely love, and thusly every day is fishing. Right? And I use fishing as the metaphor. Maybe you hate fishing, and so that's a bad one. But you know what I mean. Every day is great. It's that old adage that if you love your job, you'll never work another day in your life.
Right.
And that's simply because you enjoy the behavior engaged in having clients or seeing patients or solving problems or whatever you're doing, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And because it's so engaging and because it's so much fun, it's not work. If I was just sitting on a beach somewhere completely and thoroughly retired and someone called me up and said, hey, man, I got this problem with my business. It's this, it's that. We don't know. Our message is wrong. Our culture is bad. Our people don't stick around. Whatever it is, I'm going to jump in and just start helping that guy. That's why I don't give that phone number out very much, right? Because I don't actually want to do that before I'm retired. Maybe after I'm completely done. Then I will engage in that kind of thing and just let more people in, absent having to pay the fee for coming in. But I love what I do. I just love the process. I still have my problems. I still have all of the hang-ups associated with Bo.
Right.
I still live in the Down syndrome world most of my day. But when I'm working, I'm not really working. I'm playing chess or I'm fishing, I'm thinking, I'm playing golf. And I'm not literally playing golf, but that's the mindset you have when you are fully and thoroughly enthralled with the behavior you're engaged in, doing what you do for a living. Because I go back to the notion of life, liberty, and the pursuit of challenge, right? We don't really want just a big bucket of happiness poured all over us. Happiness comes from challenge and thought and work and effort. And once you engage in that effort and attain a goal, then there is just this briefest of moments where you just go, yeah, that's it. That's the juice. That's the good stuff. And you know it when you feel it. But if you're just handed something, and that can be freedom, time, money, a relationship, you never have the opportunity to feel what it feels like to really struggle and work for something. And so it's all about enjoying the behavior you're engaged in to make a living, and then don't expect it to be easy. If it were easy, you wouldn't do it. It would suck if it was easy.
I agree with that. I'm definitely one that needs a challenge because I need to feel like I've achieved something. But in addition to that, so obviously we were on the same page with how you feel. Like when you're not living your dream or you haven't discovered your purpose, the 3 words that come to mind are tired, sick, and disconnected.
Okay.
Right? Okay, so you're tired. Nothing is interesting. You're bored. And it can cause sickness. You're always dealing with some kind of sickness or some kind of emotional upset. And then the disconnection comes from in my opinion, and this is the way that I describe it, it's a disconnect of mind and spirit.
Okay.
So your spirit if you look at the context, so your spirit is where you house your passion and your thirst for the challenge and your need to succeed and your need to win and the competitiveness or whatever that looks like for you. And your mind is more of the logical, how do I get there? How do I take the emotions and turn it from an emotional feeling to an action? So how do I turn it into a process? I know where I am and I know where I want to be. And so your mind and spirit have to have that connection. So you're transferring the emotion from your spirit into your mind and causing actions to be taken. So you can't have one without the other, because I could sit here and from a spiritual perspective or that emotional perspective, I could feel something. And we've touched on that a little bit from a motivation perspective, right? So I can be driven, I can have the inspiration, and that maybe takes place in the spirit. On the flip side of that, my mind immediately needs to go to work to tap into that inspiration and say, okay, logically, how do I take these feelings and this drive and this emotion that I'm feeling and turn it into steps or actions that I need to take to get where I want to be? So you can't have one without the other. They work together.
Right.
So if you think about that, let's say that you have someone who has sparks, right? So I always think about it like when you're trying to start a fire manually as opposed to, gasoline in a match or however you start a fire. That's how I like to start a fire. Go big or go home. But let's say that you have flint and you're trying to work with that and you're trying to get that spark, but then you get tired and you just kind of leave it alone. Well, it's not, the ultimate outcome is you want that fire to start. But if you're not, so you have that desire, you have that motivation, you start on it. But if you're not willing to take the steps that are required, you're never going to get that fire started, right? So you're going to be tired of it. You're going to be disconnected. You're going to be pissed off that you have to do the work. And to your point, when you love what you do, you are going to take the steps and do the actions that you need to do to make that end result possible or make it happen. And how many people get lost in that connection?
Well, I mean, I think it depends on like who you are and how you are and what's going on with your life. Okay. And I mean, I have people who love me and hate me for saying what I'm about to say. Having everything that you want in life is as simple as building a hierarchy of wants, meaning I want this, but not at the expense of that. Okay. Mm-hmm. I want to go sail a boat around the world, but I'm not going to make my boy drop out of high school and come with me and lose out on what he wants, which is to play baseball. Okay.
Okay.
Which means that want of sail around the world gets pushed down the hierarchy. It gets further and further, level by level, it gets pushed down because I want something else more. So once you've built your hierarchy of wants, meaning I want this, and you go through the process and see what bubbles to the top. And once you find the stuff that bubbles to the top and you've got everything in order, yep, I absolutely definitely want that thing that's now 10 levels down, but I don't want it at the expense of the half a dozen things that are in the top 9 levels, right? Mm-hmm. Once that's done, you focus on the top 1, 2, or 3, and there's plenty of time to do 3, maybe 4 or 5 even, and you hammer out strategies and tactics to accomplish those as goals. And you just write it down. You write it down logically and you write it down emotionally. Meaning I want this house or this car or this person, this significant other, this racehorse, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And then you lay out your strategies and your tactics to get a hold of those things. And you start executing those strategies and tactics. And you find out very quickly what doesn't work because most things don't work. But then every 4 or 5 or 10 things that you try, something works. And now it gets put to the top of another list. Things that work to help me get A, B, C, or D. And if you will imagine yourself having that thing, whatever it is, let's say it is a racehorse, because there ain't much chance of me ever getting a racehorse. I'm not interested in horses that much, right? It's like, I have to be I'm tied down. I'm living out in the country. I'm not going to get a racehorse, right? And so if you put, that one's nowhere on my list. So if you say, I do want a racehorse, then you have to close your eyes and meditate and imagine yourself helping to train the horse, watering the horse, brushing the horse, feeding the horse, riding the horse occasionally. You're interviewing jockeys in your mind. You are planning races. You're looking at the stats of other horses. You're looking at ranking criteria, how to get invited to the big races. And you're just doing it. You're in it. And what does it feel like when you are sitting there and your horse is trotting around at the Kentucky Derby with a great big horseshoe of flowers around its neck, and everybody's wanting to interview you as how you got where you are, how you trained this horse, okay? Mm-hmm. That feels pretty good. You are super special. It's just you, hot babe in a big hat, couple of mint juleps, and the winning racehorse.
Woohoo!
Okay?
Sign me up.
That feels nice, right?
Yeah.
And
you have me at mint julep.
Sad. I'll just sit on the porch and have a mint julep.
I don't need no horse.
I don't need a horse or big hats or nothing.
Oh, no, I'm keeping the hat. I like big hats.
Okay. All right. Anyway, for some reason, and I know the reason, but I'm not going to get into that, right? But so let's pretend I don't know. For some reason, you have to engage emotionally and feel the emotional response of having that thing you want and avoiding that thing that you don't want. And if you can feel that emotion deeply, truly, if you can just sit there and close your eyes and bring a tear to your eye in your mind as your horse crosses the line after years of training and expense and hard work, and now it's all paying off. Nobody wants to go buy a horse. Yeah, I won this horse in a poker game, and the next day he won the Kentucky Derby.
No,
right?
There's no satisfaction because there's no challenge.
Correct. There's no story there. Nobody wants to hear that story. Nobody wants to tell that story. And so you have to build your hierarchy of wants, get it all in order, and you'll know how to put it in order because you know certain things come at the expense of other things, and maybe certain things are more important, maybe other things are more important, and you can build out that list. Once you got the list, you take them one by one, and you say, how would I do this, and what would it feel like if I accomplished it? And you hammer out a little plan of both strategies, and underneath every one strategy, you might have 4 or 5 tactics that you're going to engage in. And you're going to keep copious notes as to what's working and what is not working. And every day, as you're jotting those notes down, as you pursue that goal, you're going to sit back in your chair, you're going to close your eyes, put on a big hat, sip a mint julep, and imagine that horse winning the race, whatever the horse is. And if you will do that in less than a year, 365 times, you can get what you want. You might not have that racehorse winning the race, but you will be well on your way to having exactly what you want, whatever your racehorse is.
I agree, because I agree with that, because if you can envision it, you can make it happen. If you can believe in it, if you can put the belief in it, you will subconsciously start doing the work, and maybe consciously as well. But
that's what I was going to say. And consciously. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of it. You will subconsciously do the work, and you will consciously do the work, and your whole brain will engage, and it will just be on fire, and you'll buzz, you'll vibrate, you'll just feel it. Crap will line up. You'll get parking spots at work. Lights will change just as you come up to them. The whole world will gather together to tell you that you are on the right path to having exactly what you want.
Well, and that's where synchronicity comes in because, I had an experience last weekend where, as I told you before we started the podcast tonight, I've decided that Saturday is my day to go explore Arizona. So I need one day where I can completely disconnect and I can go have fun because with my personality, I sometimes forget to put the fun in things. Well, for me, exploring new towns or new things is an absolute adventure. And so a couple of weeks ago, I decided that if anybody asked me to go do something on Saturday or if anybody invited me or I woke up and picked a place on the map within a couple hours from where I live or whatever that looks like, Saturday is my adventure day. Right. So I had the opportunity last Saturday to head up to Prescott, Arizona, and I'd never been there before, and I had no expectations. I just knew that I was up for an adventure. And it was so funny because everything that I would have needed to experience that day to allow me the rest and the relaxation and the aha moments and the living and the excitement and meeting new people. And even from a business perspective, I ended up meeting a group of people that have a store up there that they have the capability to rent out space where I could potentially do a life coaching retreat. Okay.
Right.
So, something along those lines, this great little town, right? It's so funny to me how, because I promised myself that when those opportunities came up, I would say yes, no matter what the opportunity, that everything fell into place and it ended up being like this wonderful day where it actually led to future opportunities for me to do what I love to do, and that's help people explore what their purpose in life is. Right?
Yeah.
And so the synchronicity and the things that happen when you will look for opportunities to live outside of the norm and to pursue things that ultimately will make you happy. I am one of those people that I can get caught in my own routine and my own initiatives, and I forget that I need to put them aside sometimes and have fun and do things and explore new things, when that truly rejuvenates and energizes me to continue with my ultimate desire and my ultimate outcome that I'm looking for.
Right.
So it was really good. And so it's so funny because now when the weekend comes around, I just can't wait to see what's next.
I'm just going to, by way of, explanation, a little bit of what I believe, okay? Mm-hmm. And I won't get real deep into it. But I do believe that there are, people call them aspects of reality or other selves or angels or guardian angels or, friends and family from the other side or, whatever you want to call it, right? I don't feel like I don't feel like I have the authority to speak about what actually is going on because, I observe things from a spiritual standpoint and then I act on them based on what I feel like I've learned.
Okay.
But I do believe that there are, let's call them the friendly others.
That scared me a little, but go on.
Hello, Clarice.
Stop.
I'm
it's
sorry.
Not funny.
Anyway, the non-scary version of whatever that is.
I'm like, can you come spend the night at my house? I'm scared.
Yeah. Let's go to the whatever the non-creepy version is. Yeah, I believe that there is a way to navigate your path in life. And I believe that the angels, the sweet, loving little cupids, little fat babies with bows and arrows and cute little wings, come and whisper to you, go walk your dog, right? So if your option is, I'm sitting here and I've got to find a reseller for a product that I've developed for this company. Or better than that, I'm online with China trying to figure out a manufacturer that can manufacture a product for a company that meets certain specs, right? Because that's a true story. I've actually done that. And they're speaking Mandarin and I'm speaking English, and the interpreter may as well be serving Chinese food. He has no idea, right? You want some drink? And so, but there I am, and I'm trying to get this done, and I've got deadlines, and I need to get this done. And the little voice comes to me, the cute little angel, says, no. You need to go walk the dog is what you need to do. And early in my life and my career, I would ignore that voice. I would call that the voice of laziness and procrastination. And that voice was useless and pathetic, and I would bat it away, tell it to leave me alone. Mm-hmm. Right? Life slapped me on the back of the head enough to make me say, oh no, actually you always listen to that voice. Because I go walk the dog, and I walk down to the little country club just down the hill, and I run into a guy whose brother-in-law speaks Mandarin, and he works as a consultant finding companies like the one that I was representing, manufacturing opportunities on mainland China. Right? Now this goes back 20 years probably. Let me think. 16 years ago, right? But if I don't walk the dog, I'm sitting there on a 56K modem looking at Yahoo because Google didn't exist, trying to read Mandarin, right? I don't have a clue. I listen to the little voice that says walk the dog. And people will tell you, oh, but that's just lucky. That's just 1 in a million.
No, it's not. It is.
The thing that makes it 1 in a million is that you will not leave your chair and listen to it and go do what it tells you to do.
I agree.
Listen to the voices inside your head. They have a different perspective outside of whatever this reality is. And they can help you navigate finding what you want to make this earthly life a very rewarding experience. Listen to them.
Well, not only rewarding, but sometimes it'll save your life, because that I'm big on intuition, and that's really what it boils down to is you're listening to that little voice in your head and you're letting it guide you. So number one, in order to do that and in order to have that connection, that goes back to the mind and spirit connection. You have to be able to stop your mind and let your spirit take over to listen to those promptings and listen to that intuition. And that's something that we all have. Okay. So I have a fun story. When I was in Argentina, I was 21, probably 22 at that point. I was in Argentina and I was in the jungle. So it was northern Argentina, just under Brazil, very primitive, hand washing your clothes, doing all these things. Right.
Right.
And, I think I've talked about that in previous podcasts, but anyway, they have a rainy season. And unfortunately, because it was such a primitive area when I was down there 20 years ago, the drainage systems they didn't have drainage systems, I guess I should say. So it's not that they don't work, they don't have them. And so you would be in these areas and these monsoons would come through and there would be no drainage system. And so everything would flood. And I mean, there were literally times that you were trying to walk through with plastic boots in a foot of mud. So there was one particular occasion that I was down there and I was walking down the street with someone, and all of a sudden I get this prompting that I need to get off the road. Well, I'm looking and I'm on this muddy road and there is a ditch full of water, and on the other side of the ditch there's grass.
Okay.
And I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I continue down the road. All of a sudden, there again, intuition, you need to get off the road. So there's a bus coming down. There's a big bus coming down the road, normal every day, it's in the mud, but still. And I thought, okay, I need to get over. Well, I thought that the intuition was there because I needed to get away from the traffic because this bus was going to splash mud all over my clothes and all this stuff. So I literally jump over the ditch. Within seconds of me hitting the other side, that bus slid right where I was.
Holy crap.
I would have died. I would not be here today had I not listened to my intuition, had I not listened to that voice in my head that adamantly said at least twice, get off the road. Now, when I looked at that bus before I jumped this ditch, I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to end up in a ditch full of water. When I looked at that bus was driving down the road normally. But the bus driver hit the brakes, and when he hit the brakes, he slid across the mud right into where I was. And there's no way that I would have made it through that at all. So I am big on intuition, but it all comes back to needing your mind and your spirit connected, because the intuition, the still small voice, angels, others, whatever you want to say it is, you have to be connected to your soul and to your spirit and have that connection between your mind and your spirit to allow logic to take a back seat when you hear that voice. Because it's just like you said, when you're looking at walking the dog, you're trying to dismiss that in a logical way, when the truth is if you will just allow the opportunity, just allow that small flame of faith to go, maybe I need to get off the road, or maybe I need to go walk the dog. And we're not special. This happens to everybody.
It does.
Everybody.
It does. But people don't listen to it.
Right.
That's our biggest problem, is that we don't. It happens all the time. I mean, I don't think there's a person out there that would disagree. I've never heard such a thing. Of course you have. You know good and well you have. But the problem is, it doesn't make sense to you, and so you just relegate it to nonsense. Oh, some fleeting thought about how I should drive promptly to the 7-Eleven, and yet the thing you need is at the 7-Eleven, because 7-Elevens are convenient, and they're open from 7 in the morning to 11 at night, and they've got what you need.
And including Slurpees? I'm a big fan of 7-Eleven myself.
Big gulps. They're delicious. And can we have our money now?
Oh, that's too funny. Anyway, but I mean, that's obviously an extreme thing, but that's one thing that taught me to listen. And there have been times where, like, even driving into town and I'm on the 10 and I'm going towards Phoenix, and all of a sudden I have this intuition to get off at the exit, and I think, no, why would I get off at the exit? This isn't my exit. It's going to take forever. And then about a mile down the road, I'm stuck in traffic because there's an accident on the freeway.
Right.
And it happens, and it can be something as simple as that. And, you have to put action behind it all too. Like, we can't just drift and go, okay, what's my intuition going to tell me next? Like, you can't lean on that. But when the time comes and when these thoughts come up, you need to act on them. If you feel it and it's something strong enough for you to go, what is that? Is that real? Right. Chances are you need to act on it.
Right.
So intuition is big for me. I think it goes, I would honestly say it's 50% intuition, 50% work.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's not enough to do. You got to know what to do. And oftentimes we don't know what to do. And so if we would just sit back and rely, like you say, on that intuition, on that capacity for drive, that little voice will tell you what to do.
Right. Well, and one thing that works for me really well, I will tell you that I love to write. I started keeping a journal when I was 10 years old. And for the most part of my life, I've kept a journal. I actually had a journal that I kept up until about a year ago, and then I didn't write for a while. And last night, I felt the need to write. I felt the need to get emotions out. Now, let me tell you what's good about that. So when your brain is pondering things and you're going through thought processes, imagine it as a big circle, right? So you're going through a thought process, and thoughts are coming to your mind and you're logically thinking through them. But let's say that you take a pen and a piece of paper and you start to write the content that you're reviewing in your mind. What your brain sees is you releasing those thoughts and you putting that on paper. So you're able to visualize the thought process that your mind is going through. And it's very healing. There was actually a study. I started looking it up a little bit because I needed to get some things out on paper, get some of my feelings out on paper, sort through them, determine what my next steps would be on a couple of different things. Well, once I started writing, I mean, and it's just any old notebook and a pen, and I just started writing kind of the pros and cons and what I needed to do to let go of things that are potentially bad for me, and how do I find the things that are good for me. And I mean, this is just a basic exercise that anyone can do. Once I started writing and getting it out on paper and was able to visualize, I was able to look at the content and the thought process that I was going through in a more logical manner. So I took it from emotion to more logical. And once I was able to do that, I was able to sort through, what it came down to is it's time for me to have a new beginning. It's time for me to let go of the things that aren't serving me and to move forward and look for opportunities to explore life and have that adventure.
Right.
And so journaling is key.
Well, and two, you've got to realize that you're talking about two parts of a scale, right? And you want balance in your life. And so logic is perspiration, but intuition is inspiration. And you really can't do anything one without the other. And I have seen people belittle that notion for years, and they're still miserable and belittling the notion. And yet at the same time, I have seen people, and I won't say countless thousands, but God, probably, I mean, if I backed up and looked at everybody that I've worked with, either personally or in my materials or whatever, there's probably 3,000 people there, right?
Yeah.
Over the years, over the last 25 years. And with those 3,000 people, I mean, I have seen people have just remarkable success and discoveries and breakthroughs and incredible happiness. And so, I mean, it's great to sit back and be absolutely convinced that I'm wrong and none of this hocus pocus exists. But the people around you are happier, and they're believing it, and they're engaged, and they're executing on both the inspiration and the perspiration, and they're accomplishing goals, and they're loving their life. And we wish you were with us.
Well, and doesn't that come back to the fact that if you're happy, it proves its point? I mean, if you're...
Yeah, I do think happiness is its own reward. That's our little thing about people who just think they're happy.
Right.
That guy he's not happy. He just thinks he's happy.
Well, I would rather think I'm happy than think I'm miserable.
It's like, luckily, I know better. I know he's not happy. And it's like, dude, you really don't know anything at all.
Well, I will tell you that there is greater happiness in being productive and designing your life versus being reactive and letting things happen to you. You put yourself in a really bad situation when you're not putting some level of effort into the life that you live. And I can say that, but on the flip side, I've been at the extreme where I'm just like hamster on a wheel. I'm just spinning and spinning and spinning. and I forget the balance. So really, balance is key on each side of that scenario. But if you are not moving towards something, then you run the risk of things coming at you.
Yep.
And then you're just fighting battles all day long as opposed to going out and conquering. And one thing, and maybe we're getting close on time, and I have a whole thought on obstacles and how, like I said at the beginning, I tend to name my obstacles, but I get very comfortable with them. And so maybe obstacles will be the next podcast that we do, because I don't think we really have time to explore how we overcome them and how we're comfortable with them in a lot of cases. But I will tell you this, I truly believe that it goes back to that connection, but you also have to create a space for new things to come into your life. If I'm holding on to a relationship that isn't fulfilling for me, or I'm holding on to a job because I need the paycheck, imagine if you have a box full of books and it's too heavy to lift, and so you're sitting there with this box, and if it's completely full and somebody comes by with more books, you can't add to your box until you take some out, right?
That's right.
Okay, so you have to create a space, and sometimes that means closing doors, moving on, finding something different, evolving your strategy to a point where you are emptying the box. And you don't have to empty it completely, but at least allow for some kind of space. You have to create a space because life will naturally fill that space. So if you're completely stocked, floor to ceiling, or boxes full of books, you can't get another book. You can't get anything into that space until you empty out some of the stuff that you're holding on to.
Right.
So in order to really discover what your purpose is and really be true to yourself, you have to let go of the things that aren't serving you.
I agree.
So, and that's,
are you getting, well, I go back to that notion, that question that I ask every client and every child I've ever had. Is this behavior, thought, action getting you closer to what you want or further away? And if it is not getting you closer to what you have decided you want, because you've been through the exercises and you've created that hierarchy of wants, so you're very clear on what you want. You're also very clear on the strategies and tactics you're going to use to get that. And so are you engaged in a tactic, or worse yet, a strategy that takes you away from what you want, and being able to identify that? Because if you are, put it down, walk
right.
away from it. You are either moving towards your goal, or by attrition, you're moving away, right? I mean, if your goal is to swim and walk up the beach, if you just stand there on the beach, the tide will come get you eventually. There is no still. You have to continually work toward what you want.
And it's so fulfilling too. I mean, it truly is fulfilling. I think that when you're not working towards your ultimate life, you're not living. You're not progressing, and all of those negative experiences, whether it be depression or that disconnect or unhappiness, or, you know, I'm fighting with people that I care about all the time because I'm not fulfilled as a person, or I'm just not living.
Right.
You know, there are a lot of things that we can't control in life, but our reaction and our ability to create is something that we have absolute control over.
Right.
So I think it's key to really discovering what your purpose is, and not getting on that hamster wheel.
Right.
So.
But that's what we do, right? We do that so frequently. I think if I just, okay, I'll liken it to business development clients that I've had in the past, who they think that they can just, send out one more email. If I just, print up flyers and put them down at the Senior Citizen Center just one more time, even though that has never worked for me in the past, it will work now. And what's going on there is that people do not want to engage in the behavior that pays them. They want to be engaged in the behavior that they're comfortable with. And so they will sit and labor, agonize over just which word to use in the title of their email, when largely it just doesn't matter. You might get a mediocre open rate, you might get a huge open rate, but largely you want to keep up with that stuff and make it better as you move along. But to put the brakes on for 4 or 5 days in a marketing process because you don't know if you should use, is or was, it's just ridiculous. But people do that because they want to avoid the success which comes at the expense of a risk of failing. Right. So imagine your hierarchy of wants. I want to succeed. I want to avoid failure. Okay? Well, if your success is higher on the hierarchy, then you're avoiding failure, wanting to avoid failure, you're going to be fine. But if you put avoid failure up at the top, then you're doing that at the expense of success. And that's business, relationships, life, that's everything.
Right. That makes sense. I agree. I think that I think the hierarchy of what you truly want is absolutely key. And really, don't you think it just comes down to making a list of all the things that you want and then ranking them?
That's all you do.
So
that's all you do.
If I want this, yeah.
Right. We've been saying that to people for months now.
Yeah.
But I've been saying that to people for years now. Sit down. It takes a couple of hours at night. Get your mind clear. Have a cup of hot cocoa or a mint julep or whatever suits you. And be honest with yourself about what you really want. And then be honest with yourself about what that costs. If I want to go live on a sailboat, but the expense that I'm going to have to pay is taking away my son's dream, then I don't want it as much as I thought I did. Turns out I want his dream more than I want to dash off and live on a sailboat, and God willing, I'll have a chance to do both. But I have to choose.
Sometimes it's timing, right? It's timing. So just because so that's a whole different thing maybe that we can get into, because think about it like this. You want Josh to have the baseball and high school experience, right? And you want that because you love him. But you also want to sail the world. I mean, in all the years that I've known you, and I've known you a lot of years,
yeah.
You've always wanted to sail off on a sailboat. Always.
That's right.
Okay, so if you look at that, it's okay to want both. You just have to prioritize, and you look at the time frame for Josh. Okay, Josh is eventually going to graduate from high school, and he will graduate from high school, and then you potentially could have what you want, which is to sail the world. So here's the thing. You can't get sidetracked from what you want just because you can't necessarily have it today. So no, you cannot run off, hop on a sailboat with your kids and sail off into the sunset today. But you can work towards that ultimate dream for yourself 4 years from now. And 4 years is not a lot of time.
Not a lot of time.
I mean, it goes by so fast. And so you can't lose sight of that. So the worst thing that we can do is shelve a dream that we have because we think it's not achievable tomorrow. Does that make sense? So
absolutely.
So there are things that I want in life, and I know that I'm not going to wake up and magically have them appear tomorrow. But that doesn't mean I'm going to quit wanting them. That doesn't mean that me wanting them is an aspect that I have to change. I don't have to change my dreams. I just have to prioritize them. I know that there are certain things that I need to do within the next couple years to get me where I want to be. And so that's what you do. So you set that time frame, and then you work yourself back and figure out what you need to do a little bit along to get to that 4-year goal. It's okay to have dreams and aspirations 4 years out. And so I think that that's a good point for our listeners, because a lot of people don't capture that. They don't necessarily, they're like, well, I want to be a famous singer, and I'm really good, but I can't do that tomorrow. So I'm just going to shelve that dream. No, if that's a dream of yours, start today.
That's right.
There's always a way to discover what it is that you want and work your way back to where you are today. I think a lot of times we try to discover where we want to be and we move forward. There's nothing wrong with discovering our ultimate desire and moving backwards to get to where we are. Right.
It's called reverse engineering. People do it all the time. We do it in business. We do it in technology. We do it in warfare. We do it all the time. Look at where you want to be, figure that out, and then start backfilling with the steps that would be required to get there. That's a great methodology.
I agree. It boils down to being honest with yourself and being truthful. And I will tell you, as a disclaimer, there will be times where there may be something particularly that you want, and it might be leveraged on the interaction or action of someone else, and you can't necessarily depend on that. So I really think that our whole next podcast should be on obstacles. I think it would be a really good opportunity for us to expound on obstacles and how they're normal. Like, obstacles are part of life. If you didn't have obstacles, it wouldn't be a challenge.
And there would be no reward.
Right.
Yep, I get it.
Anyway. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for showing up as usual. We really appreciate you giving us a listen. Hit us up if you have any questions, just through the regular channels. Facebook is probably the easiest. And we will be back in a couple of days with more stuff to talk about. So until then, dream your life.
And live your dreams.
And I'd like some cheese with that, please.
Some wine and cheese. Oh, cheese.
All right.
We're hilarious.
Thanks. We're so funny. It's you. You're the funny one. All right.
No, it's you. Okay. We love you, Montana.
Until we meet again, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.